There are many other heroes up and down the track. Let's support them and help them and get some back. Come on, sorrow, no more pain. Let's all get on the cannabis train. THC, CBD, it's all perfect out with me. THC, CBD, it's all hope and remedy. THC, CBD, it will make you cancer free. THC, CBD, it's a perfect harmony. THC, CBD, it will make you cancer free. THC, CBD, it will make you cancer free. Get the word out in every way you can. See the cure all across the land. You know, and I know, folks are getting healed by using the oil from the crop in the field. No more chemo, no radiation found. See the cure is going around. See the cure, 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 see the cure.
Hey, thanks to Tom Blessing, too.
I'm not sure. They're pretty important to me. We've gone great lengths to bring these folks out here today that travel a long way to be here. And the reason for that is, and the reason for Seek the Cure, is to provide a resource for cannabis patients, or patients in general, and caregivers alike. A vehicle of information to provide a place for somebody to go to when they get a diagnosis, much like I did. You know, it was about 4 or 5 years ago that I was diagnosed with diabetes, hepatitis C, and liver cancer all on the same day. And that day was a pretty horrible day in my life. The prognosis that the doctors gave me was not full of hope. It involved things like liver surgery and chemotherapy, colostomy bags, and things that I wasn't really necessarily willing to participate in. So it was through this desperation, this absolute desperation, that I turned to the internet, the first place of information that a lot of people go to find out how to kill cancer outside of this box that the doctors are trying to put me in. What other options are there for me besides for chemotherapy and liver surgery? It was through this desperation, through this research, that I found a place called Phoenix Tears. The Run from the Cure video that many of you are familiar with is this video that saved my life, and many of the people in this room have that in common with me. So it was through this that I met Janet Sweeney, who was running Phoenix Tears at the time. And Janet and Bob and Rick and Heinrich and Corey and everybody that was involved with this group seemed to be, number one, accessible to me. These were real people that, although I looked up to them, I put them in a hero category, so to speak. Before you know it, these are people that I was talking to on a daily basis. People that were willing to take time out of their lives for little old me. And I thought that was pretty awesome. So here we are years later, and you know, the amount of effort that I've put into paying that back, and the number of days that I've spent willing to help and educate and work with and learn with many of the people in this room are something that I'm very proud of. But these are things that I've learned from the people over here to my right. Without any further ado, we're going to bring Janet Sweeney up here from Phoenix Tears. We're going to hear a little bit about her story. Big round of applause for Janet.
Hi, I'm Janet Sweeney with the Phoenix Tears Foundation. And we started the foundation with Bob and Rick to give people a place where they can go and at least find some information your own body.
Speak into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we started the Phoenix Tears Foundation just to give people a place to go, resources to learn about this, educate, and where we can help other people legislate to get their states legal too. So we just wanted to be a place where we can reach out and meet other people and just teach. So very simple, and we bring on Cora Yellen, one of the people who actually found the site and was able to cure her own cancer.
Good evening, everybody. So Michigan really knows how to rock, let me tell you. I'm from Canada, and I'm going to try really hard not to say a whole bunch of times, but I don't guarantee anything. I'm from Victoria, British Columbia, and in July of 2011, I was diagnosed with anal canal cancer. I already suffered from a condition called post-sternotomy syndrome, where I had a really, really crappy quality of life and did a really good imitation of being 80 years old. I went to the cancer clinic, and I took a couple of people with me, so I made sure I heard everything, and it was kind of like going to a meat market, and it was things like, well, this is the worst part of the body to treat, and you're going to have second and third degree burns vaginally, rectally, perianally, and I thought, okay, this is not going to be a party. And then he said, yeah, your vagina will probably fuse shut, and your rectum will probably fuse shut too, and it was at that moment I thought, I don't fucking think so. So, next radiation. When I told the doctor that I wanted to think about it for a bit, he told me that I had 2 to 4 months, 6 on the outside, that I had a death wish, and walked out. So we went upstairs to the library, and there's not a lot out there on anal canal cancer, but I thank Farrah Fawcett very much for making it somewhat glamorous. But what we did find out was the #1 cause of anal canal cancer is radiation. So I'm thinking, okay, so you want to radiate me to get rid of cancer to what? Get more cancer? So I went home, and just was kind of really depressed and trying to figure out what to do, and my sister sent me the video Run from the Cure, which sat in my mailbox for a couple of weeks because I could see it was an hour long. And I used to work as a cancer counselor counseling terminally ill cancer patients and their families coming from a holistic vein, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about curing cancer. So she phoned me and said, have you watched it? And I said no, and I thought, okay, well I'll watch 10 minutes a day to get her off my back. And I sat down and I watched the first 10 minutes, sigh. And after first 10 minutes I'm going, holy shit, this really makes sense. And so I watched the whole video and went, wow. And ended up calling a physician friend of mine in Italy, and I said, Daniela, what do you know about this? And he's like, oh, Corey, we've been treating cancer with cannabinoids for years here. And I went, oh, okay. So I started researching, and that's all I did for 2 or 3 weeks, was research day in, day out. And at the end, I decided that's what I was going to do. I got signed up at the dispensary, and that in itself was really quite an experience. I was kind of like Alice in Wonderland in there. I hadn't smoked dope since I was like 20 years old. And yay. So got my card, went up to the counter, said, yeah, I want to get some oil. And he's like, we don't have any. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have any? So I ended up making my own, a little bit at a time, because I was on disability, but I had some incredible friends that donated money, and so I'd get 1 ounce or 2 ounces at a time, and managed to make it without not blowing myself up, and started doing oil. And to give you an idea, I mean, truly, I was like an 80-year-old then. I was so sick, I was in agony. I took 10 to 15 Tylenol 3 a day, Dilaudid, Percocet, oxycodone, you name it. Sleeping pills at night, couldn't wait to get to bed, to get out of the pain, sleep for 2 hours, wake up, sit on my patio all night crying, waiting for morning, and that was my life. And within 2 weeks of being on cannabis oil, I was taking a half a Tylenol 3 a day. And that was like a bonus I hadn't even thought was going to happen. And I continued taking the oil, I felt better and better. I'm not going to say that it was easy, but it's sure a hell of a lot better than chemo radiation. And there was many a day that I stood there and I looked at this tube of black shit and I thought, this is going to save my life? Really? Yeah, really. So I want to share something to you that's kind of really near and dear to me. My son, when I told him what was going on, said to me that I'll support you no matter what you do, Mom. And after I cleared myself of cancer and phoned him to tell him that I was cancer-free, he said, "Do you remember when I told you that I would support you no matter what you did?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "When you told me you were going to do cannabis oil, I thought to myself I had my mom for 6 more months." So he was wrong. I said all along, if this cured me, that I would spend the rest of my life telling people about it. And so that's what I do. And cannabis oil is amazing. I know many of you people here are fighting cancer. And I'm here to tell you, don't give up. No matter how sick you are, do not give up. And I'll just quickly share 2 little stories with you just to give you an idea of what this oil can do. 6 weeks ago, a woman reached out to me from Greece about her boyfriend who was 30 years old, testicular cancer that metastasized to his leg muscle, his buttock, the bone in his arm, his brain. The doctors had sent him home to die in the city of very little time. We got him connected to oil. He started taking the oil. In 5 weeks, his cancer count went from, I think it was 27 or 2,900 down to 32. In 5 weeks. So, at the same time, she said he just had an MRI of his brain, and I'm going to let you know as soon as we get the results. And I'm thinking, there's just no way it's done anything with the brain yet. I mean, it's amazing it's done this much in 5 weeks. And almost all his tumors in his brain are gone. One was 9 millimeters, and it went to 1 millimeter in 5 weeks. We have a brain tumor patient in England who was told he had 2 months. I think he was in a wheelchair. He's small children, the whole 9 yards. He had 2 months to live. That was 2 years ago. He's up, he's walking. I think he's actually gone back to work. So I guess if I could give everyone here a message, it would be, try the oil. Try it, believe in it. It works, honest to God, it works. You don't even have to believe in it, just take it, okay? And the rest it's great. And I'd also like to thank Pete, because it's been amazing for me to meet Bob and Janet and Lindsay and George and some of my amazing peeps. I just love you guys. Thank you.
What an awesome story. Thank you, Corey. You know, the ride, the adventure, the path that we find ourselves on with cannabis oil in our quest for the truth about cannabis oil is something that can be very hard to articulate, very hard to share the whole story, you know. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm not going to go too far into it, but in a nutshell, cannabis oil or any treatment for any disease, in my opinion, is a threefold thing. And while most of us can see the very obvious and the physical, the 2 things that I feel are really overlooked often are the spiritual and the mental battles that take place with any sickness and any treatment and any disease. And cannabis oil is no different. And Corey touched on it a little bit. She said it wasn't easy, you know, and those of us that have taken high amounts of cannabis oil and gone through those treatments can relate to that. You know, and we're certainly not out here to share anything negative about the oil, but the truth about cannabis oil is that it's not all peaches and cream. It's not all getting high and having fun, like tonight's going to be. And more importantly, it's not a cure-all, and it doesn't work every time. Some people don't respond to the oil. Some cancer patients take the oil and the cancer continues to grow and they die. And this is an experience that nobody likes to dwell on, that's for sure, but it's also part of the truth about cannabis oil. And while it's not easy for any one individual to lose any one individual, it never seems to fail. And Dr. Bob, I think you can relate to this. You know, the closer they are to us, the more we care about them, the less success we seem to have, and the more frustrating it is to lose these people that we call our brothers, our friends, our sisters, our you know. So the difference between when the oil works and when the oil doesn't, I guess, is where we're at right now with our understanding, with our research, for lack of a better word, with our experience. This is where the path has brought us. And one of the things that I've learned this weekend through many of the conversations that I've had, not just with patients and caregivers and so on, but with all of you, is that we're really starting to understand a lot more about why the oil does work for this guy and why the oil doesn't work for this guy. With that being said, I'm going to bring up Dr. Melamede to explain a little bit more about that for us, because that's who I go to. Come on up, Dr. Bob.
Hi everyone, and of course thank you, Pete, and all of your buddies for helping all of us to help each other, because that's really what it's about. Cannabis is an amazing, amazing plant, but it's an amazing plant because we are amazing, and all life is amazing. And it turns out that quite miraculously, we have evolved this endocannabinoid system, meaning marijuana from within. And what is just mind-boggling, especially in view of the absurd crap that's been peddled for so many decades now, is the fact that our endocannabinoid system literally regulates every single thing in your body: your immune system, your digestive system, your cardiovascular system, your bones, your skin, your body temperature, your appetite, your pain levels, your emotions. That is how you work. I mean, as amazing as that sounds, it's the truth. And it's a truth that we didn't know prior to 1987, when the endocannabinoid system was discovered. We knew pot got you high and did things, you know, and had therapeutic value, but we didn't know that the reason it did that was because we're all making pot all the time. One of the fun things I have when I give expert witness testimony is I start off by saying, everybody in this room, the judge and the prosecutor, everyone has used marijuana today. And the prosecutors, they get all twitchy and weird, the cops get all weird. And I say, yeah, every time every one of you gets hungry, it's because your brain makes some pot and you're giving yourself the munchies the same way that smoking pot gives you the munchies. So everything in your life, not just eating food, but everything. If your pain levels are sufficiently, regulated, well then you make enough pot. But if you're in pain, you need some more. So why would you tell somebody else that they can't have what you have? And if you're happy, well good, you make enough. And if you're depressed, you probably need some more. And everywhere you look, in terms of our human health, you see that cannabis is in fact the solution. And it's the solution because of us having this endocannabinoid system. What becomes quite miraculous from my point as a crazy scientist is how it manages to accomplish things that are contradictory. And that's what I'd like to just spend a little bit of time talking about. Really the CB1 versus the CB2 activity and what they do with respect to life, fundamental aspects of life. So if I can have some time, hopefully I won't drive you too insane here, but it turns out that as long as energy flows, mass organizes itself. That's a scientific reality that we don't teach in our schools because most of the teachers don't know about it. It's the same reason why the doctors are not taught about the endocannabinoid system, because their teachers don't know about it. So how are they going to get taught about it? You see, we have this little problem now that we've had this cannabinoid revolution begin. It has to spread, and obviously it's spread to all of us because we've used it, experienced it, and know it. But you got a whole world out there of people for whom that is certainly not even close to true. In any event, back again. All cells need to continuously burn energy to maintain their organization. As soon as that flow stops, the cell dies. All right? And it can die in different ways. It can die gently by a process called apoptosis, or it can die explosively and very inflammatory by a process called necrosis. But you know, hey, if you got a cancer cell, you don't give a shit how it dies, just die, right? And it turns out that cannabis promotes both of those types of processes. And it turns out that when we need to make energy efficiently, we have to make it dangerously. And we use these little machines in our cells called mitochondria, and they have this special thing called the electron transport system, and that's how we wind up making ATP, which is the basic energy of cells. And what happens is when you're doing that, you also make free radicals. And one single free radical molecule could kill you if it hits the wrong gene in the wrong cell and doesn't get fixed and turns into a cancer cell that kills you. So one single molecule can kill you. And we have in every one of our cells 10,000 of those damages a day in every single cell. So we have very organized systems that try to help maintain us functioning and working properly. And that's what the endocannabinoid system is at the very heart of. It's just miraculous. So it turns out that the CB1 receptor, which is the one that gets you high, winds up allowing cells to burn sugars, carbohydrates, in that efficient but dangerous mode. It extends how they can do that safely, and that's why it protects the brain. Because the brain is very susceptible to that type of cell death caused by the free radicals, because it's making most of its energy in that dangerous way. And the reason it does that is because it needs the efficiency. You know, your brain is 5% of your body weight, but it's 20% of your energy. So it needs a lot of energy to maintain all those connections and all those firings and all that organization. So the other side of the story is the CB2 receptor. And what the CB2 receptor does is it turns on and facilitates fat burning instead of carbohydrate burning. And when cells are burning fats, it's a safe way for them to generate energy. They don't have that same level of free radical production. So they're able to make energy, and they do it safely, but they do it only under very certain circumstances, when they've been so damaged by making energy efficiently, they have to stop for a while and back off and fix the machine, basically. So there's a process called autophagy, self-eating, where the cells eat themselves, but they eat the pieces of themselves that are damaged by the free radicals. So they basically purified themselves. And that's what your CB2 receptor does. It forces you into that fat-burning mode. That's why a lot of you, I'm sure, have noticed when you take a good dose of oil, you get hot. You know, you get physically hot. And that's because you turned on fat burning. It's the same thing that happens to you when you go running. You know, first you burn your carbs for a while, and then you have to turn on fat burning a little more. That's when you start to get really hot. It's the same story. Cancer is just an aberrancy of the normal stuff that's going on. And because all the normal stuff that's going on uses cannabis, when you then overwhelm the system, it kind of gives everything a reset, so that your whole body has the opportunity to become healthier, while at the same time, it's making the cancer cell unhealthy, because it can't readjust to the metabolic changes that are fostered by turning on these CB1, CB2 receptors. So it's just such a miraculous, special system, you know? The truth is definitely stranger than fiction, because of how, so let me back up again. The fact that flowing energy has a creative nature, okay, that's God. Regardless of what religion you want to plug it into, or if you just want to leave it as science, which is where I leave it, all right? But the fact is, flowing energy has a creative nature. Life is a natural process. Evolution is a natural process. And we reached a certain level of complexity when things had to change because they didn't have the ability to safely make things more complicated. And that's when vertebrates appeared. And guess what? Appeared with vertebrates. CB1 receptor. So the very transition that allowed animals to go from being insects and lobsters into the lineage that had led to us. And that entire time, in evolutionary history, the cannabinoid system and those cannabinoid receptors have played a greater and greater role in the survival and the adaptability of those organisms. It's all about adaptability. Think open-mindedness. What does open-mindedness mean? It means you learn some new facts and you change your mind based on those facts, right? Well, if you don't have enough cannabinoids in your brain, you can't do that. You wind up learning something, right or wrong, and then if there's something new and better to learn to replace it with, you can't do that if you don't have enough cannabinoids. The other thing everybody makes fun of, forgetting, right? Well, you have to be able to forget, otherwise you can't learn. If you learn something wrong, well then you're going to stay stupid if you don't have enough pot. And just think about our government. Think about the world governments. They're stupid. We are all suffering from governmental illness because of the fact that the population, it's not a random population that we have running the country. It's the people who want power. And why do people want power? Because they're afraid that they can't control things. And what does that mean? It means that they can't adapt to change. It means that all change, be it good or bad, is still stress on the cell, on the tissue, on the organism, on the population. Change is stressful, good or bad. And how do we buffer change? With your endocannabinoid system. So that half of the population that's lower in endocannabinoids, those are the people, I believe, that are overly populated in government. Those are the unhigh people. That's why they used to have a bar in the Congress there, you know, because we have that drunken, stupid mentality of aggressive, angry, uncooperative people. Look what goes on in Congress all the time. I mean, what pathetic, moronic shit. These people should be required to smoke dope before they go to work every day. It's just insanity, you know? So anyway, what we're experiencing now is the cannabis awakening. And the blips, the backward-looking people that have run the world historically, I believe, are right now in the process of being replaced by the forward-looking people, the more cannabinoid-endowed people. And what we're doing by using cannabis to promote our health is we're actually spreading the truth about that truth, about what has happened, how we got here, where we're going, and now through consciousness and awareness we can be smart enough to do what evolution, God has done all along. Make us use more cannabis so that we can be healthier, live longer, be happier, learn to cooperate. Let's stop wasting all the money on defense and on aggression and on A-bombs and decommissioning them and all the insanity. It's everything that we have in the world that's crazy today represents the lack of success of the people who are our so-called leaders. And they can never lead when they're looking backwards. And they're looking backwards because they don't have enough pot. So we have to work together, we got to spread the truth, and thank you all for being here and for allowing us to be here.
There's going to be a test on that in about half an hour or so. Hey, we got a great lineup for you. We got Oliver Hall, we got Glow Stick Willie, we got Hookah in the house. So stay patient. We're going to make some music happen, man. Thanks. People don't understand that, but he does. But I'm going to bring Jim up here, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about his story, his son Ryan, and his adventure with medical marijuana. Come on up, Jim.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, everybody. Some of you may know me. As Pete said, my name is Jim Powers. I have a son named Ryan. Ryan is 6. And he has a disease called minimal change. And what minimal change is a chronic autoimmune disease that causes his immune system to attack his kidneys. He contracted this disease when he was 3, and as is very common with most of the diseases that we deal with when we're talking about pediatric cannabis use, it's what they call idiopathic, which means they don't know what causes it and they don't know how to cure it. So with Ryan, the medical protocol for the treatment of his disease was a very high dose of steroids. And when that didn't work, we started moving into some of the more severe caustic drugs, such as Cytoxin, which is a very potent version of chemotherapy, some transplant drugs, and some drugs that aren't FDA approved for the treatment of his disease or for pediatrics in general. So we literally were running out of treatment options for Ryan when he wasn't responding to normal treatment. And it was then that we turned to cannabis oil, as many of us have, just purely out of desperation. We really didn't know what to do. So we started him on the cannabis oil, and after some tweaking, the results were just phenomenal. A child that prior to cannabis oil could only remain in remission for 14 days and was hospitalized at least once every 3 months. Went to today, I think, is 321 days. He has nothing but long-term remission at this point. Short-term remission isn't an option. He's completely off of steroids. None of this would have been possible without cannabis oil, without people like Uncle Pete and Jen and Christy and these types of resources that I was able to reach out to and really engage and get their feedback. As Pete said, when we started treating Ryan, it was before the Dr. Gupta special. I was called every name in the book for daring to give my son a Schedule I controlled substance, but I don't care. Pete says I have balls as big as Volkswagens. Respectfully, Pete, that's bullshit. He's my son. I would do anything, including go to jail, and I'll fight every single day that I'm breathing in order for him to get his medicine. This is absolutely his medicine. So I would ask that everybody in this room, please dig deep when you're thinking about giving to this cause. I can tell you that the people behind the scenes have the most important thing at heart, and that is patience. That's what this is all about. So please, if you can give, please do, and please, everybody, just know that there's an option out there. As Corey mentioned, cannabis oil is an option for a lot of people, including kids. So there's no reason to lose hope. There's always another option. So thank you, everybody.
There are many other heroes up and